Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 1145 for the 13th of April. We are actually well into the 14th of April. Yeah, my schedule, my timing is all a mess because I slept too much. Yeah, DP open mind, so very draining. So no choice, I have to sleep. And the frontline changes, the latest frontline changes and geolocations is actually also mapped in already. So you're not going to miss anything. No, it's basically just a summary of what happened yesterday, and of course the latest frontline changes today. So anyway, press the like button, subscribe. Especially we are still going for 100,000, and I lost a little bit of subscribers over the trade war, SITREP, but no, it's not going to phase me because just like the Ukraine war, no, I know the pro-Ukrainian guys in the beginning, yeah, they don't believe, what I said. No, in the end, all proven correct. I believe the trade war is going to be the same. Fundamentals don't change. So we're going to start off with the biggest news. Yesterday I mentioned, or yesterday's the rap, I mentioned this no peculiar thing that the Ukrainians have talked about. They losing one F-16 pilot due to combat mission. Now we have the corroboration coming from the Russian side. They claim that the air defense has shot down an F-16. So this is actually a corroboration. The rumor that I heard was that it was on a combat mission in the Sumy region, and then it actually avoided one SAM missile, and then it returned to launch a second bomb, and then it's the second SAM missile that take it down. But I can't remember where I saw it, so no, that's the story I remember. So we're gonna go to the Kherson front. At the Kherson front, we have the usual, some shelling in the rear positions like Mikhailske, Sadove, and Antonevka, with some fighting in the Dnieper direction, which I usually just draw it towards Pridniprovsk. But that's all. We don't have any other things as usual over the Kherson front. Over at the Zaporizhia front, Zaporizhia wish you a happy birthday, your birthday today. And over at the Russians continue their offensive in this sector. This time around, we have more actions over in the Orikhiv sector with fighting reported at Novoandreyevka and Novodanilivka. Fighting is reported at Palivka, Shebaki, and Stepove. The line here seems to be pretty difficult for the Russians to break through. Despite the Russians claiming that they have captured all these places, there doesn't look like a massive breakthrough. This is quite evident due to the probably heavy mining, in this region, because this is basically the Ukrainian Zaporizhia front, Zaporizhia line, the Ukrainian war. So this is clearly it's going to take some time to break through. It's not going to be easy. But the Russians, despite the difficulty, try to push east. Is the big news there? Is the significance? Is a surprise to me that they want to push through this difficult region. There's a geolocation of FPV drone strike hitting Ukrainian infantry. So that's about it. Nothing particularly special. Just showing that the Ukrainians are still there. So we move on to the next front line. There's nothing. There's one more over the Huaypole sector in the Zaporizhia front as well. Huaypole is mentioned according to the Russian Defense Ministry. They mentioned Huaypole. Or Guyapole, a bit weird. Of course, we're not sure what the hell is happening. This is usually pretty quiet. Tentatively, I don't expect too much. We move into the Koma front. Now, for those that missed yesterday's wrap, this is Velika Novosilka front. So this is Velika Novosilka front, and then this is the Andrievka front. I have decided to combine the two and call it the Koma front because we all need to go into coma from time to time, every day actually for 8 hours to 10 hours. It's good for health to be in the coma. So over in the western side, there is fighting reported at Bulatske, Privilne, Vinipole, Shevchenko, Novosilka, as well as Novopil. So the Russians seems to be pushing pretty hard, particularly in this direction. This is also the closest point to not the closest, but one of the points. Yeah, it's the closest point actually to the Dnieper region. So this is one of the many places where the Russians now has the Ukrainians now run the risk of Russians reaching the Dnipro-Petrovsk Oblast and creating some kind of a massive PR disaster. So this is one of the nearest one. The other near one is I think around here. So, but anyway, there is shelling reported at Merne, is also Kalamaksa. Shelling is reported there according to the Russians. Shelling is also reported at Filia, very far away, not important. Geolocation of another artillery getting destroyed. The Ukrainians are losing artillery at an immense speed by purely on the geolocation of all these footages. This is a pretty bad way to use artillery, you know. But it looks like there is just no choice, right? And on the flip side, when is the last time you saw a geolocation or a video footage or FPV drone footage from the Ukrainian side of them hitting a Russian artillery? I haven't really seen one in a long time. Like, in fact, I haven't even seen a lot of these Ukrainian drone footages. Like, not a lot nowadays. There are some, definitely they're hitting logistics, hitting infantry, some cars, but not much of the heavier equipments. Like, they're hitting the softer targets. So it's just, maybe it's just me, you know, maybe I just happen to not consume enough Ukrainian propaganda. But over on the eastern flank, we have fighting reported at Andriivka, Oleksievka, Constantinople, Barhate, Rosleaf, as well as Oradne. So mainly not the strategic situation remains the same. So we will continue to monitor the development in this sector. We move on to the Pokrov front. So this is Pokrov, and this is the Pokrov front. At the southern flank, we have frontline changes. So Ukrainian mapping have considered that they have lost half of Preobrazhenka. So that is Ukrainian mapping. Fighting is reported here as well. Fighting is also reported at Bodanivka. So tentatively, still very, very contested in this region. This is the other side where the Russians are getting close to the Dnipropetrovsk. This side is a bit close. This is another part that is very close. So the Russians are not threatening to reach the front line. There's one here. So another one here, another one here. These three locations is running the risk of Russians getting into the Dnipropetrovsk region. So over in the Pokrov sector, so this is what I call the Pokrov sector. You can also call it the ugly chicken sector. There's a chicken here. Then it's like, yeah, it's very schizophrenic. Like there is, like, you know, it saw things. Then every time you look at him, the chicken only have this 1,000 yard stare into the abyss. He cannot believe the kind of things that he saw. So the fighting is reported at Novosahivka, Odashne, Kotliny, Zvivrove, Shevchenko, and the geolocation of Ukrainians at Novo-Oleksandrivka is mentioned. There's a drone strike, I think. And then over at Udashne, the Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian mapping, have mapped that the Russians have entered into this eastern part of Udashne. This comes a little bit of a contradiction if you look at this in the grand picture, because the Ukrainians say that they have taken this entire railway forest. So this forest surrounding the railway, the Ukrainians claim that they have captured it. But for me to believe that the Russians would then ignore it and enter into the settlement, putting themselves at a huge risk of pincer and cutting them off is a little bit unusual. Like, it doesn't feel right. It feels a bit off. Wouldn't you want to secure this part first before you go for the town? This is just my thought. So this is something that I just want to highlight. It feels a little funny. So over in the Minokhrad sector. So this is Minokhrad sector. Minokhrad is here. Fighting is reported over at Zvivrove, I already mentioned. Fighting is reported at Pokrov, Shevchenko, towards Novopalivka and Lysivka. Similarly, strategically, there's nothing particularly new about this. Geolocation of a Ukrainian attack was noted towards Zeleny. It was a motorized rifle unit. So, but yeah, this is not mentioned by any sources, or I mean, other than the geolocation that the Ukrainians attacked. So, but it's very normal. So for those that are not familiar with DPA, usually the fighting report is going to be geared towards Russian attacking Ukrainians, because very seldom you will see very specific information about Ukrainians attacking Russians. So just get used to that. It's not an unbalance of the report. It's just how the reports are being made. Like the Russian Defense Ministry talks about where they attack. The Ukrainians the Ukrainian military talks about where the Russians attack. So on both cases, both sides talk about Russian attacks. So the only ones that you're going to get Ukrainian attacks is going to from the open source. Though, like the Deep State UA from Reba, that's the ones that will be talking about Russian getting attacked by the Ukrainians. So over in the northern flank, we have a major update. According to the Russian mapping, Russian forces allegedly have secured Yelizavetivka. So this mapping change come pretty late. Is to corroborate the Russian Defense Ministry's report about the capture of Yelizavetivka. Fighting is reported at Mariolubivka, towards Novopatovka, Novodiane Druhi, Tarasivka, and shelling at Oleksandropil. So that's the reports around here. Strategically, there's some change because of this front line, which means the Russians can now attack Melanivka from two different directions now. So that would be significant. However, based on this hypothetical or observed trench lines that was mapped by someone else, not by me, this would mean the Russians will still have a pretty difficult time to break into Melanivka from the south, unless this defense line is already totally blown out by the Russians. So we will see. We will see how this goes. Over in the thorax front. So maybe soon we're going to start to rename all this front line. By the look of it, I think it's getting a bit weird. So the big news is, of course, our sauropod here is still alive. Let's give it a name. The name of this dinosaur is Nelipivka, in case you forgot. It's a Diplodocus. So over in the New-York sector, massive update coming from the pro-Russian mapping. They claim that the Russian forces have secured Kalinove and basically taken a lot of ground, strengthening the front line. This kind of mapping suggesting that the Ukrainian forces actually have withdrawn. They have abandoned the position around here. And the Ukrainian mapping themselves talks about the development over at Valentinivka with Russian forces taking more grounds. By the trend of things, I think the Russian mapping might actually be correct. The Ukrainians are unlikely to want to quickly review even more of such losses. Although they did review quite a bit already. Fighting is now moving into Stara Mykolaievka, and then fighting is also mentioned at Sukha-Balka. So this development is looking rather bad, and because the Russians have breached this defense line, my hypothesis is that this defense line here will not be used. Like the Ukrainians are not going to hold a stand here. The line of defense is going to be here, along Stara Mykolaievka. I think this is where they will hold the line, in this area here. This first line here, I got a suspicion that they might abandon it pretty quickly. So let's continue to watch out for this development around here. We'll see how this goes, and just in case, this line. So moving on to there's shelling report at Zoria, but not important. It's too far away. We go into the thorax front, thorax sector. This area here, Russian mapping. This is Russian mapping. These two are both Russian mapping updates. Claim that the Russian forces have taken more grounds around Krymsky as well as Druzhba, expanding their foothold or their breakthrough. Fighting is now reported at Udashne, Battle of Torex continue. Now fighting reported at Klebanbik, Katerinivka, and Leonidivka. This used to be usually we map this as shelling, but because of Nelipivka, the Diplodocus, we are now putting it as a attack. So we shall see how this continue to play out, because this is of course very vague. Did the Russians actually have a strong foothold, or do they not? Is this adventure a disaster? No, they just die very far away. We do not know. So that's the main problem right now. So a lot of these things are still under wraps, inside the fog of war. So no, let's wait. Over in the Bakhmut front, this is Bakhmut. At the Bakhmut front, we have fighting reported at Ozyarenivka, Priteshny, and Chastivya. So geolocation at Didievka, MLRS, yet another artillery system was taken out. Some small frontline changes as to Polski, not very important. You can watch the frontline changes for that. And we move on to the northern flank. Nothing at the northern flank. We move on to the Sivers front. So at the Sivers front, the only fighting reported here is actually at Verkhamok-Kanyamsky. This is the main attack right now. There's a geolocation of a Ukrainian counterattack over in the south of Kharkovivka was noted. But that's all. It doesn't change our mapping. The Ukrainians attack. So NH Dronivka is mentioned, by the way. So we're going to zoom in this area here. Ukrainians are attacking around this area here does suggest the Russians are nearby. Previously, we have geolocation of Russian forces in this region here. So the Russians must be around in these areas, which then the Ukrainians can attack. Like, right? No, if the Russians are not there, then what are you attacking? So we shall see how this continue to go. You can see this terrain here is outrageously complicated, and yeah, it's a horrible place to fight in. You can see how shelled off, right? Because this is the updated satellite imagery. You can see, how shelled out this area here. You see tank tracks, and you can see literally where they go to. Then another one drive here, go up. Yeah, it's just a horrible place to fight. Sivers front is like the most horrible place to fight in. So over in the Liman front, in the southern flank, we have fighting reported over inside the Serebiansky Forestry, Torske, Yampolivka, Zarishny, and shelling at Yampil. At Yampolivka, there is more developments. With the Ukrainian mapping mapped that the Russian forces have basically taken more grounds inside of Yampolivka. So we are on the verge of a full capture of Yampolivka, based on our mapping, with a little bit of Yampolivka in the very southern part, defending the causeway. So let me show you a bit, move everything here. Yeah, defending the causeway towards Smyrny, left. This is just a little bit left. So we shall see how these continue to develop. Looks like Yampolivka's days are closing. Drobisheve, there is a missile strike on the alleged Ukrainian UAV control point. We move on to the northern flank of the Liman front. Fightings reported at Kharkivka, Novomihailivka, Katerinivka, Rykobdop, Nove, and Zelene Dolena. So strategically, nothing changes. This is more or less the same situation around here. We move on. Over in the Borova front. This is the Borova front. Similarly, we have the two-prong attack continuing. We're fighting reported at Zarizove, Novokrylyakivka, Sahievka, and Novoihorivka. So shelling is reported at Borova, but that's all. So this situation remains the same. We move on to the next front line, which is over at Kupiansk front. At the Kupiansk front, we have fighting reported at Rakivka, Kupiansk, Petropavlivka, and a geolocation of Russian forces in the north of Zalgoryukivka. Ukrainians are geolocated inside Kupiansk. A missile strike hit Ukrainian forces. So that's all. Rakivka, usually we put it at the Voreshna front, but I don't remember anything at the Voreshna front. The whole front line went quiet. You can see there's no reports here. The whole front line went quiet. So don't know what the hell happened there. So we move on to the Kharkiv front. The Kharkiv front yesterday, we talked about some very unusual attacks in these far reaches. It's not repeated again. Shelling, however, is reported over at Shubi and Karasivka, not important, very far away. Over in the Voschansk region, of course, the skirmishes at Voschansk continue. There is fighting, however, reported at Vochansky Kotori. This is reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, and it's important to note that yes, the day before, Taikei was the one that is being mentioned. So the Russians potentially could be like they have overrun Taikei and they are now moving into Vochansky Kotori. That is a possibility, but unlikely, because we haven't seen any reports of the Russians capturing Taikei, or at least they did claim to have captured it long time ago, last year, but probably not correct. So we move on to the last front line over at the Kursk front. So over in the Belgorod incursion, the fighting is now, you can see like there's some shelling in the rear positions in Novodimitrivka, Petrushivka. At the front line region, there is not much. The Russians are attacking Maropilsky, Prokody, and Turia. The Ukrainians are still at these regions here. They're still there. However, there's no reports of Ukrainians doing anything. So the Russians are the one pushing them. They're getting attrition away needlessly. So just to add, I don't like offensive that don't serve purposes. Although I still do that when I play computer games, but there is over in the Kursk sector, there is fighting reported at Oleshnya and Gornau, and particularly at Gornau, massive strategy change over here. The Russians is now on just outside of Gornau. Geolocation of Russian forces along this tree line confirms the Russians have basically advanced through the forest. They have captured all these regions. Oops, what happened to my they have advanced. I don't like this arrow. Let me delete it. Advanced down this forest, and with this advance also means that this sector here is also fully secured. Russian mapping have mapped that the Russians have advanced through this forest as well along the Svel River. So the Russians are basically closing in on Gornau, and Gornau is basically just right next to the border. So the Ukrainians, whether they want to still hold a position, I'm not sure if they still want to hold a position. But with this development, also confirms that Goevo is now fully captured by the Russian forces. So with this, actually we will declare Goevo confirmed to be captured. Russian forces captured Goevo, which is 13. So this is now confirmed on our mapping. So another town taken back by the Russian forces. Nothing over in the Sumy sector. There's no more updates regarding the Russian incursion into Sumy, and that's about it. So this is the summary for the day of the 1145 for the 13th of April. So like I said just now, happy birthday to those having birthday today. Subscribe for 100,000. We try to get a silver plug for our community. It's going to be a bit challenging because I'm doing the trade war SITREP, but let's see. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next update.